So it is 1:01 p.m. This is the June 6th, 2025 commission meeting of the Oregon Commission for the Blind. Max, will you please take roll?
Oh, certainly. Um, Chair Nadira Broom is noted as present. Lillian is absent today. Laurel Hudson,
Present. Sorry about that.
Dr. Labram,
Present.
Stephanie McGarry,
Present.
Scott Wall.
Present.
Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Max. All right, we'll proceed with the audience introduction.
All right, I'd like to introduce these staff members from the Commission for the Blind. First, we have Daisha Johnson, the Executive Director, Angel Hale, Director of Vocational Rehabilitation Services, Kat Martin, Chief Financial and Information Officer, Ron Stewart, Director of the Business Enterprise Program, Jim Portillo, Director of the Orientation and Career Center for the Blind. Melinda Carlson is not joining us this afternoon. We're also joined by Clay France, the agency's internal auditor, Mary Michelle Sosney, who is our legislative fiscal analyst, Michael Wolf, who is our business manager. And is there anyone I've overlooked? Thank you. Roll is complete.
Thank you, Max. Before we proceed with the approval of the minutes, there are a couple of administrative or housekeeping matters I would like to get to. So I attended an OGEC training, Oregon Government Ethics Commission meeting this morning, a training session, I should say. And we have to make a couple of changes so that we are following public meetings law. So we will have to, from now on, when we vote, there will have to be a roll call because every commissioner's vote should be noted by name for commissions or boards, governing bodies that are fewer than 25 members, even with unanimous votes. So we'll have to get used to that. And I would also like to ask that when someone is speaking or is about to speak or has a question during the meeting, would you please first identify yourself? Okay. It would help with the transcription as well as for anyone who may not be able to see who's speaking. So, all right, now we can proceed with the approval of the minutes. And we have 3 sets of minutes to approve. Over to you, Max.
All right, the December minutes, this is from the December meeting. The minutes now reflect the action taken following the executive session. Is that right, Nadira?
Yes.
All right. So we have the December meeting minutes, the February meeting minutes, and the April meeting minutes to approve today.
Okay, so I will be looking for one motion to approve all 3 sets of meeting minutes. So any motions, commissioners?
This is Laurel Hudson, and I will make a motion to approve all 3 sets of minutes.
Thank you, Laurel. A second?
This is Alan Labram. I can second that.
Thank you, Dr. Labram. Second. Max?
All right, Nadira,
Yes,
Laurel,
Yes, approve.
Dr. Labram,
Approve.
Stephanie McGarry,
Approve.
Scott Wall.
Approve.
Thank you. The motion passes.
all right. We move on to public comment. Any public comment today? Okay, hearing none.
Oh.
We proceed with the executive director's report. Daisha?
Nadira, can I interrupt for just a moment? We have a new member of the OCB staff that's joined us, Corey Marshall. Corey Marshall is my counterpart in the Business Enterprise Program, and he will be backing me up for commission meetings. So you may see him appear sometime when I call in sick or I'm on vacation. Corey's here to learn the process today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Max. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you.
All right, sorry, Daisha, over to you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. It is a beautiful day here in Portland. I want to start my report with a reminder. The June meeting typically falls right around Rose Festival. And so this afternoon, the Portland office received a note from one of our staff who is a member of the Dragon Boat Lethally Blind team. So if you happen to be engaging in Rose Festival activities or are interested in attending the Rose Festival Dragon Boat races, Lethally Blind is the name of the team that has some staff who volunteer their time to participate as members of the team, but also several clients of the agency who many of which I understand are first-time paddlers and new to dragon boating. So we're really, really excited to support Lethally Blind's competition in the dragon boat races in the 2025 Rose Festival. So it sounds like they are anticipating having races both tomorrow and on Sunday. And it looks like they're expecting 40 teams in the competition. So that's a fun activity to look forward to. So we wish Lethally Blind all the best success in their upcoming races this weekend. Moving on, I want to ask Kat to go over the donations and the financial reports.
Thank you, Daisha. Good afternoon, Chair Broom and Commissioners. I, again, am Kat Martin. I am the Chief Financial and Information Officer at the Commission for the Blind. Referring to the bequest and donation statements which you have received in advance of this meeting, our cash balance in the donations fund increased by $2,781 from interest earnings on our accounts during the period under review to $976,000 on April 30th, 2025. As a cost savings measure to reduce our general fund obligation, the legislature directed the commission to use a portion of our donations funds to match a salary expense of one transition counselor. That was some time ago, and that obligation was carried forward to the 23-25 biennium, and with $59,000 of donated funds expended through April 30th towards that obligation, the unobligated donations balance after this adjustment is six. Oh, I grabbed the wrong number. Just a minute. I gotta fix that. My apologies. $966,118. I dropped that 9 somehow when I transferred my notes over. Okay, sorry about that. I'll pause there and see if anybody has any questions since I fumbled that.
Questions for Kat on the donations report?
Okay, continuing on. Referencing the financial status report also sent to you in advance of this meeting, the Commission's legislatively approved budget after the early actions in the February 2025 session of the legislature was $30,774,900, 67 positions, and 67 full-time equivalents. For 23-25, where $8,497,650 is general fund, $1,140,387 other fund, and $21,136,863 federal fund limitation. Based upon 20 months worth of activity as of April 30th, a variance to our legislatively approved budget is projected for the end of the biennium on June 30th, with general fund fully utilized, other fund under the approved limitation by $268,000 or 23.5%, and federal funding under the approved limitation by $13,000 or less than 1%. The total variance projected for the end of the 23-25 biennium is $281,000, where the approved budget is $30,774,900, and projected expenditures $30,493,661. Since the close of accounting's April activity, the full Committee on Joint Ways and Means heard OCB's budget bill on Friday, May 30th. Using the Legislative Fiscal Office's recommendations, which were less than the governor's recommended budget due to the revised revenue forecast released by the state's economist office on May 14th. The committee passed LFO's recommended budget of $9,497,634 general fund dollars, $1,148,422 other fund expenditure limitation, and for federal fund limitation, $22,135,700. Our total budget to begin the new biennium, as we start out on July 1st, is at present $32,781,756, 67 positions, 67 full-time equivalents for the 24 months representing biennium 25-27. That concludes my report. Are there any questions that I can answer for you today?
Any questions about the financial report? All right, thank you, Kat.
Of course.
All right, moving on to our agency legislative update. Kat shared that our budget is now through the Ways and Means Subcommittee and Full Committee, and it's through one chamber of the legislature. It passed through the House, I believe, this week, and it will go on to the Senate side. And assuming it passes that chamber, it will go on to the governor's office for signature. It is my experience with the budget bills that it typically is the governor signs them in one large group, and that she has 30 days post sine die, or the end of the legislative session, to sign those bills. So I don't anticipate that the bills will be signed and finalized until sometime the latter part of July. That is typical. And so what happens in the appropriation bills is that we will get an automatic appropriation for the first quarter that is basically 1/8, right, Kat? Is it 1/8? I'm saying it and I'm double second guessing myself. We'll get just a portion of an automatic percentage of our budget, and then they will adjust accordingly once the budget is reconciled and moves forward. Is that accurate, Kat?
It's 15% to start the biennium. They give us a little bit more than 1/8 to begin.
Okay, thank you. 1/8 didn't sound right, so I appreciate the correction. And as Kat indicated, we were hoping and anticipating, because the governor's office included an older blind independent living position. This is something that obviously the commission has been tracking closely and very committed to, given the significant shortage of resources dedicated to the older blind independent living program. And the economic indicators suggested that the legislature is going to have fewer dollars to work with overall, and there are many, many competing priorities. So we were saddened that that commitment wasn't made. There is an acknowledgement, however, even in the economic forecast itself, that Oregon's population continues to age, as we know it does, and that there is an ever-growing need for the older blind independent living program. So even though we did not get what we had hoped to get this time around, there was the door was closed, but a window was cracked, I would say, for continued conversations in the future as we look at growing and expanding the program. As you know, we barely scratched the surface with meeting seniors' needs in this program. We do very limited outreach, and yet we are always over capacity. So we're hoping to be able to expand it because even very basic teaching time and services makes a huge difference in people's lives. And I want to recognize Mary Michelle, and she doesn't have to chime in if she doesn't want to. But Mary Michelle certainly has been a champion for us in recognizing the need in the older blind program. So this is not a reflection at all on her policy work or recommendations. It's just really the economics. And there's so much uncertainty with Medicaid right now at the federal level. And there's such a large percentage, I think it's a third of Oregonians rely on the Medicaid program for basic health insurance and health coverage, that they really need to be super conscientious about funds to really help with the basic social safety nets for a large percentage of our state. Questions about the budget, the legislative process?
Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
I don't know if this is related to, but what about employment? I know in Southern Oregon we don't have, I mean, in Eugene or Medford, there's no O&M instructor. Is there any talks about that happening?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the orientation and mobility shortage is a national issue. We have a position in Medford that's filled, but they do not have orientation and mobility certification. And so that is part of an ongoing effort for us to just expand our capacity for orientation and mobility. The Eugene position is still vacant. We are still recruiting for that position. And typically, we've had a little bit more challenging time filling that versus filling our Portland positions, but not nearly the difficulty that we're currently experiencing. We still remain optimistic that we will be able to fill the Eugene position, however. We continue to recruit for that.
Sorry. So the one in Medford, because I had someone that was contracted out this past week. So who's the one in Medford? So there is someone in Medford, they just can't do O&M? Am I misunderstanding?
We do have a rehabilitation instructor for the blind position filled in Medford, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And we do have some contracting support, to your point. We're trying to meet the needs on either through contracting out with private sources or filling the needs through either our training center or with staff rotating around to the extent we can. Any other questions? About the legislative update. Okay. All right, not hearing any, I'm going to hand it over to Clay because I inadvertently skipped over him. He has completed his annual review of the agency head transactions, and he's here to respond to any questions you may have. Take it away, Clay.
Great. Thank you, Dacia. Good afternoon, commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I am Clay France. I'm the internal auditor for the agency, and I would like to take just a couple of minutes to talk to you about the annual review of agency head transactions. And you have a copy of that report in your packet. And some of you may recall that I present this to you annually. The Oregon Accounting Manual has a policy around this called the approval of agency head transactions. And it addresses 5 areas, and it sets the accountability for the review and approval of the agency head's monthly time reports, travel expense reimbursements, any requests for vacation payoff, any use of exceptional performance leave, and then any purchases made using a small purchase order transaction system card, which is a big name for just a purchasing card. And so the policy requires that boards and commissions either play an active role in reviewing and approving each of these transactions, or delegating the review and having the review be performed independently on an annual basis and reported back to you. And that is what I am doing today. So I looked at all of these transactions that I just talked about for the period of April 2024 through March 2025. And I'll just give you short summary of the results. It's all included in your report in a little bit more detail, but at a high level, all 12 timesheets were properly completed and approved. Dacia had one vacation payoff that was processed and it was compliant and properly approved. Dacia had 7 travel expense reimbursements through this 12-month period, and they all complied with policy and were properly completed and approved, except for one. The travel policy requires that anytime an employee is using a personal vehicle on a business trip, that a form called the authorization to use private vehicle form be created and approved prior to the trip. And this was the case for this form was properly used in all other instances except for one, and that was for a June 2024 trip. The next area, you, the commissioners, approved an exceptional performance leave for Dacia in your December 2024 meeting. All of the policy requirements around this leave were followed with one exception. The policy requires that the approval of this performance leave be documented in the meeting minutes, and it was not. And then lastly, Dacia does not have a spots card or does not have the purchasing card, so that is not applicable. So overall, from reviewing all of the transactions, it appears that they are being reviewed for completeness and accuracy. They're properly approved. They conform to the compliance requirements with the 2 exceptions that I noted above. And just lastly, management agrees with these 2 findings, and management is taking corrective action. Any questions on that report? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. It's really helpful for us to have this done on an annual basis. So thank you, Clay, for taking the time to do it. All right, then the final item, Madam Chair, I just want to provide a federal update. As you know, we've been tracking the current administration through their series of executive orders they've issued, as well as since our last meeting, they've issued a couple of forms of a budget request. The first being what's called a skinny budget. And that skinny budget is a fairly high-level document that was issued in early May, and there was no reference at all whatsoever to the work that we do here at the agency, or really the Rehabilitation Services Administration. So in summary, it was super high level, and so because RSA, the Rehabilitation Services Administration, is such a small program relative to what the overall department does, it was too small to really meet the honorable mention. But it was a good sign for folks that follow it from a policy perspective, given the fact that there was an executive order early on in the Trump administration that had directed the secretary of the department to move forward with making efforts of closure of the Department of Education. So there was no reference to either the closure or the Rehabilitation Services Administration in the skinny budget. Most recently, if you were following the news this week, the secretaries of the various departments, and the ones that are most material to us are the Secretary of Education and the Secretary of Labor. Both of those secretaries were in front of House Oversight Committees this week to talk about the president's budget and recommendations. The most significant thing to remember is, and I've heard it said that the president proposes and Congress disposes is the phrase. So even though when you think of the president of the United States proposing a budget, it is a big deal. It is a major development, but Congress can act on it or not act on it, and more often than not, does not act on the budget recommendations of the president historically. So in the, and I listened to a portion of the secretary's remarks early on Wednesday morning. And Secretary McMahon was talking about the need for more efficiencies and looking for reductions, consolidation of smaller programs, and a more emphasis on local control. And oftentimes the local control was references to the president's budget recommending that local school districts, if they want to prioritize particular programs, that they would actually find an alternative source of funding other than federal funds. So the local control was also an indirect way of referencing additional budget reductions recommended in the Department of Education. Specific, that larger budget document does reference the Rehabilitation Services Administration. And the recommendation made there is that the funding for the vocational rehabilitation program in particular is reverted back to 2024 levels of funding. So that would, if Congress did end up moving forward with the recommendations, that would be a reduction overall in the program of over $300 million around the country. There is no evidence that even the House majority in the Republican majority in the House or the Senate are going to fully accept the recommendations as the president has proposed them. And the portion of the hearing that I listened into, there were some very poignant questions around reducing programs that actually make an impact in either learning outcomes or programs that help low-income school districts. For example, we have a lot of rural school districts that benefit from direct funding from the federal government, as well as a variety of programs that are like work study programs for students and institutes of higher learning, and Perkins programs that fund trades school activities around the country. So this budget typically traditionally be approved for the federal fiscal year that begins October 1st, which is federal fiscal year 2026. In many years, more often than not, we enter what's called a continuing resolution. A budget is actually not approved and passed before the start of the federal fiscal year. And at this point, it's not certain whether or not that will pass or not. The other bill that is through the House and in the Senate that could potentially have impact is what is called the Big Beautiful Bill that the president had asked the House to pass. It is in the Senate. We had a Council of State Administrators and Vocational Rehabilitation membership Zoom meeting on Wednesday. They had some policy analysts on that call, and they suggested that it is unlikely that the Senate will fully accept the House version of that Big Beautiful Bill and will largely look at making some significant changes to that. That is where a lot of the Medicaid cuts that have really caused our Oregon legislature to have significant concern around the impact that would have to Oregonians. And those Medicaid cuts, and then the overall tax cuts that are made to the higher earning individuals in the country, those are both significant concerns that would result in fewer resources available for publicly funded programs. So I will pause there and see if there are any questions about the federal environment, the budget process. Right, hearing none, we will continue to monitor it and certainly provide you with a regular update at your meeting. At this point, we are continuing to be hopeful and optimistic for the federal fiscal year 2026 and beyond, but we will keep you apprised as we go. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Hey, thank you, Daisha, and thank you, Clay and Kat. All right, we now move on to old business and the Summer Work Experience Program 2025.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Angel Hale, Director of Rehabilitation at the Commission. I am excited to share that we have now conducted both of our orientations for both what we are calling SWEP explorations. So those are the community-based opportunities, as well as a couple of our students who are going to be attending Yes One at the Washington School for the Blind this summer. And that was a few weeks ago and done virtually. And then our Portland-based program, which we're calling SWEP Emerging Leaders, was conducted last Saturday. So we're as close as we can be to having definitive numbers, understanding that we are working with humans and teenagers that do have some things that we're still mitigating and trying to work around, make sure that all of them can participate. But at this point, it is looking like we have between 22 and 23 participants between both programs, 7 or 8 in the Portland program, depending on one of our students needing to work through some processes. And a really great group of students, I will just say. They were already bonding both in the virtual and especially in the in-person Portland-based program. We had the most support people, the most family members or people that are involved in the caretaking of our young people in the Portland office this last Saturday, which was really cool to see, just that level of support and interest in the students' participation in SWEP. We are very excited for students to be moving in. I can't believe how quickly it's coming, but they'll be moving in on June 21st. And as you know, they're going to be having their celebration in August 1st. So just keep that on your calendar for the Portland-based program and the Friday prior for the community-based. We are working on our plans. We'll be getting those out to you as quickly as possible, just trying to make sure that we are able to accommodate any needs that have arisen for employers, to make sure that employers can be there and that parents can come if they're able to come. But we're planning right now to have both of them done in person, both celebrations done in person. The Portland celebration, we are still navigating a little bit, trying to make sure that we get the right size and location. So it'll either be on the Portland State University campus at the commission itself, or it's somewhere in the Portland area, but we're checking with PSU right now just to see about a possible location there. But we're super excited for this summer. We've got a lot of excited kids, and I will say very musical group this year again. We have a lot of people that are interested, that play instruments or that sing, a lot of kind of crafty folks that are joining the programs. They're going to get a lot of use out of that STEAM room that we get set up in the Portland dorm. And reminder too, for those of you that are interested, we are now going to be located in the Broadway dorm rather than the Ondine dorm, which they're showing its age. It's going to be torn down here in the next few years. So we're kind of excited to be back in a little bit newer space. But we are really looking forward to a solid 6 weeks for our Portland program and around 5 weeks with some levels of flexibility for our community-based students. And we always are happy to engage in a conversation if you want to get involved in any activity or you just want to come and visit with the students in the dorm. We're happy to get that coordination done in conjunction with our SWEP coordinators and, of course, our dorm managers. So if that is something that's of interest to you, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to make those connections and get that set up for whatever may be convenient for folks. That's the quick update for SWEP, but I am happy to answer any questions that you all may have, commissioners.
Hey, Angel, this is Laurel.
Yeah,
Um,
Laurel.
hey, does the
Hey.
new dorm, do they have AC this time?
I almost brought this up, but it's not great news. No,
Oh, no.
they don't. That seems to not be a really common thing for these older dorm. I mean, it's newer. I'm not going to say it's new. We've been in the Broadway dorm before. It doesn't have AC, but we have purchased individual units in the past couple of years that we've been placing. They made an exception for us because they normally don't let you bring those kind of units in. They've made an exception for us, and so each student will have their own individual AC that we've provided in their rooms. So
Yes,
we know how warm that gets, and
I know.
yeah. Hopefully when they rebuild some of these dorms like on Dean and other ones, they'll put AC in. Other questions? All right. Well, hearing no questions, you know where I am. Please do feel free to reach out to me, and happy Friday to each of you.
Thank you, Angel. All right, moving on to the order of selection.
All right, and I'll tee this off a little bit, and then Kat and Angel are also going to visit as well with you. We did, for those of you who weren't able to be with us in April, Kat and Angel provided an excellent overview of what order of selection is and how vocational rehabilitation agencies are required to utilize it when resources become constrained. And this is really under the backdrop of we are serving more customers than ever. And with the rising costs and inflation, we're serving more customers. And the cost of services to actually deliver services and contract for services and purchasing of equipment, all things are rising. And so eventually, if your costs are going up and your grant and funding does not go up at the same rate, you will eventually hit a position where you're not able to serve all eligible individuals. There are two reasons why you would go into an order of selection. And what order of selection is it's a provision in the Rehabilitation Act that says that if you are unable to serve all eligible individuals for either the reasons of lack of sufficient staff, so if you don't have enough staff to process applications and create plans for employment and do the follow along, that's one reason you would go in. The other reason would be is if you have insufficient case service funds to actually procure and purchase services on behalf of an individual who's eligible to receive services. So for either one or both of those reasons, Congress envisioned that vocational rehabilitation agencies would enter an order of selection in which they would be prioritizing the needs of individuals with the most significant needs first. This is sometimes a challenging thing for people to think about because sometimes people will say, well, wouldn't it be common sense that you would, if you don't have enough money, you would try to serve individuals with the least amount of needs first that would cost the least amount and be able to be served more quickly? And the rationale as to why that's not the case is that if individuals have fewer needs and can get services in a less intense and more less specialized way, that they could actually get services through another workforce partner agency. but that the vocational rehabilitation services are intended for individuals with disabilities. And so if you don't have enough money to serve everyone, individuals with the most needs and the most specialized needs related to their rehabilitation services and their disability would get served by the vocational rehabilitation program. And then we would provide information referral to, for example, the WorkSource Center for individuals who may not have significant needs for services. Since we last met, our sister agency, the Vocational Rehabilitation Program at the Department of Human Services, just received approval from our federal funding agency, Rehabilitation Services Administration, to enter an order of selection. And they're envision doing it, and I believe the date is the 14th, and I think it's a Saturday, the 14th of June. So they're expecting within the next couple of weeks to enter in an order of selection. They're in the process of notifying all of their existing consumers of that process. They've been in hearings with their stakeholders for the past several months now, but they're anticipating entering into the order of selection very shortly. We share the federal money that comes to Oregon. So it is not unheard of that we may get to a position where we too also have to enter an order of selection. We are not there yet, but that's one of the policy decisions that may come in front of the commission at some point. So we just want to make sure that we are alerting you to this process and giving you contextual updates along the way. So if we have to present this decision to you at some point, you understand the process and you're comfortable with the decision that you may be faced with at that time. So I'm going to turn it over to Angel and Kat and see if they have anything else that they would like to share. And certainly, commissioners, encourage you to ask any questions along the way.
This is Scott. I have a quick question. So if the commission gets to an order of selection, what are the criteria that we base this on? Is it, that's my question.
Very good question. It is somewhat self-defined, and you have to do a state plan amendment. And so the only thing that I would reference is what we had previously. You create categories of kind of orders or priority levels. And when we first, we were in order selection from 2005 to 2009, and we had 3 priority levels. The most significant priority level, that basically you calculate the level and types of barriers that people have and the types of services they would need to overcome the barrier. And then you estimate if those needs are over an extended period of time. And so we had 3 categories: the most significant, significant, and then not significant. The majority of the people that we served at that time, and I envision that it's probably even more complex now, most individuals that we serve are new to blindness and practically fall into the top category of services. Because they have extensive needs, and those needs require extensive services over a period of time. So oftentimes what happens is we're bringing individuals in off of either that first, very few individuals fell into the low category of not significant. And so we bring people in based on application date. So all things being equal, we would take individuals off of the order based on application date, if that makes sense. But that is a little bit part of the decision that the commission would make, help us inform what those priority levels would look like.
Thank you.
Stephanie,
Go ahead.
what happens to existing clients or existing customers?
Very good question. So the way I was explained this many years ago, and it makes sense to me, if you think about if you are waiting at a restaurant for a table, existing clients are seated already at the restaurant. And once you're seated, and once you're an active client, in a plan for employment, you have access to the full menu of services, just like you would sit at a restaurant. So it should not, if you do it right, you should not have an impact on existing plans for employment. So it would only impact individuals who have not yet been determined eligible, who have entered into an individualized plan for employment. It does not also, you are not able to cap services. There is a provision in the regulations that say that you cannot limit services in terms of cost or duration of time. The vocational rehabilitation program is intended to be time limited, but you can't, due to a lack of resources, make that the reason why you're limiting the services, either in the total cost or the duration of the services itself. It has to be based on the reasonableness and the needs of the individual consumer.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question.
This is Nadira, so I have a quick question.
Yes. What
happens with returning clients?
That is a great question. So if you are returning, if you're returning and you're coming with a new application for services, it would be that you would start at the beginning of the order of selection process. With one exception, there is a policy decision that was added to the Workforce and Innovation Opportunity Act in 2014 that allows a state to choose, and I can't imagine, and Angel could certainly weigh in if she feels otherwise. You can choose to have job retention be one of the priorities that you set in your order of selection. So if you have a former consumer who was at risk of losing employment, you could prioritize that individual in your order of selection process to help them keep their job. That is a relatively new provision since we were in the order. And Angel, you can chime in. I suspect we would use that option.
We absolutely would. In fact, it's already built into our state plan in the section where right now we say we are not going into the order, but here's the provisions that we would be proposing. So it was an accepted state plan, and we would move that forward when we went into the order as well.
Thank you, Angel. Good question.
Stephanie, I have another question.
Yes.
So you talked about people going to WorkSource. That's the unemployment office, correct?
Correct.
Are you aware that there's no computers for blind people to use there? So how is that going to work for if that happens?
Yeah, that's a great question. In no way would order of selection replace or negate the importance of the specialized work that we do. You're right, Stephanie. If there are times in which there are real practical barriers to be able to access outside programs for individuals who are blind. That's the reason why the importance of having the Commission for the Blind in the first place.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
are aware, and it is an ongoing challenge for us on a regular basis.
Yep.
Other thoughts or questions?
Daisha, I will chime in and just say, and I'll say this to commissioners as well. Daisha did such a thorough job. I looked at all my talking points and I think they all got covered, but I'm sure he's happy to answer any questions as the Voc Rehab Director, if there are any that I can answer. And I don't know if you still want Kat to go over the financial part of this.
Commissioners, we had prepared some information in April. It's certainly reflected in your minutes. If you would like Kat to provide a summary of that for those folks who were unable to join in April, she has that information and she's prepared to go over that as well.
Yeah, I think it's good if Kat would do that. Yeah.
Okay, go for it, Kat.
No, thank you, Commissioner Broomdesha and Angel. It's just some of the statistics that, because I'm the numbers person, I typically report out on. I have been looking at our financials and analyzing what has been happening with our numbers over the last several months as I've grown concerned about the pinch on our resources. And here's what I'm seeing. This has changed slightly from my report out 2 months ago, because during my report out 2 months ago, we did not yet know what our final or what the third amount was going to be awarded to us with the third continuing resolution. And we were pleasantly surprised with a 9.4% increase with our 2025 award over our 2024 award. That in part was cost of living increases for 24 to 25, but also to make up for the fact that 23 to 24 was held flat. The bigger picture, though, pulling out is federal awards from federal fiscal year 2018 to the current have increased on average by 2.8%. At the same time, the cost of doing business in Oregon, and that is inflationary increases, bargained increases that employees have been receiving. Overall, just it's getting more expensive to live and work. The cost of doing business in Oregon has increased by 10.7% per biennium. So our federal awards have gone up by 2.8%. The cost of doing business is going up by 10.7%. You can see the gap right there. The other factor that is influencing this, impacting this, and it's a favorable thing because it means more clients are stepping forward and are looking for services. It's difficult for us to manage it because we don't have the resources to employ more personnel or contract out. The number of clients that we're serving has increased by 10% over that same period of time. So those are just some of the metrics that bear out our need to contemplate order of selection at this point in time, as the revenue is just not keeping pace with the expenses.
And I will jump in. Thank you, Kat, and Daisha. Just shows you how well versed, especially our executive director, is in this area, so that she covered all the talking points mostly. But I will get into the weeds just for a second to say that one of the things that I am noticing as the director, counselors have a spending authority up to $5,000, and I will tell you, in all the years that I've been the voc rehab director, I'm generally was looking at maybe doing a couple that were over 5,000 a month, maybe two, maybe three, a smattering. And now they are hitting my inbox multiple times a week because everything, as noted, has gone up in price, especially as it relates to technology. So I just wanted to underline the fact that a lot, and even our job development and job coaching resources have gone up exponentially as well. So those are the areas where I tend to be the one that is doing those approvals and reviews because of the cost of all of the services and technology in particular. In case that's helpful to understand those buckets of where those are landing.
Stephanie, I have a question.
Yeah, please, Stephanie.
So, Angel, so what about self-employment? Are there a lot of people that are doing that? I mean, how does the self-employment program work?
So Stephanie, great question. There are a good smattering of self-employment cases. I think the last look we did, I don't have that right in front of me, but somewhere around like the 20 or so. And as they get closed, we have more people that come in that are interested. Some of them are in exploration, so they may not be in a self-employment plan yet, but we certainly do have people that are interested, and we love being able to support that process. The order of selection isn't going to change anything, at least at this point, in regards to our support of self-employment. So that is something that we'll continue to review and support as it makes sense based on people's aptitudes and interests and resources and all of those things. But I'd say it's still going strong. We still have people that are doing great things and starting businesses in Oregon.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Definitely the determination of the priority level happens as part of the eligibility process, so it's pre-planned. So an individual, once they're off the wait list, then they would get into the planning process. So once they're through that front door, all of the services become available to them. That is, whatever vocational goal and the services and outcomes necessary to achieve that goal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any questions? Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, now we're moving into new business. And the second action item on the agenda, we have a donations request for client services.
Yes, commissioners, as you will recall, when Kat read in the donations balance amount, and then you will also recall that we were in the position that unexpectedly that we were not given an additional position for the older blind independent living program. And we have been, we identified an opportunity to hire a fully certified and qualified teacher in the Pendleton area. And he has been with us for some time in what is called an unbudgeted position, a limited duration position. We were hoping to make that position permanent without success. We would like to retain that position for some time to allow us to transition and give us a little bit additional time, one, to give that person notice and not end the position at the end of this month, but also to give us a little bit of time to level set and prepare for the remainder of the biennium. So we would like to ask the commission to dip into donations to cover some older blind independent living supports for the remainder of this federal fiscal year. And the amount we're asking for is the what we're expecting in the operational cost, which is $199,870. And what we're expecting that this will be able to do is, one, cover the position through August, and two, cover the remainder of the gap in what we didn't receive in older blind independent living funding, the difference between what we received in federal fiscal year 2024 to federal fiscal year 2025. In more flush economic times, if the vocational rehabilitation grant was not so taxed with vocational rehabilitation needs, we would be a little bit more flexible with how we're funding the older blind program. We just don't have the level of flexibility. So we would like the commission to consider the request of, again, the amount is $199,870, and to cover supporting the older blind independent living program while we adjust for the reduction in service level between now and the end of September 2025.
Any questions before I ask for a motion, commissioners?
Yes, Stephanie.
Yes, Stephanie.
So if this money is granted, that's only going to allow that person that's doing this until September?
It's actually going to fund basically it will help us support the operations as they currently are through the end of September. partially what that will do is keep someone in the Pendleton position through August. And then the remainder of the funds will replace what we didn't receive in federal funds and just stabilize operations so we're not constrained where we're trying to utilize funds that we would otherwise need for vocational rehabilitation program clients. It will allow us to keep the level of services and dedicated to the older blind program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the use of the $199,870. Correct, Tisha?
That is correct.
Right, okay,
I had to keep on saying it myself.
okay, right. Commissioners, motion?
This is Scott. I make a motion that we accept the money, but I don't remember exactly how much it was. So $199,987. I knew I'd be close, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Scott. A second?
Stephanie McGarry, I make a second.
Thank you, Stephanie. Max? We have to do the roll call voting. Oh, is Max there?
Oh, Max, you're on mute.
Nadira Broom,
I approve.
Laurel Hudson,
Approve.
Alan Labram,
Approve.
Stephanie McGarry,
Approve.
and Scott Wall.
Approve.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Daisha. All right, so we move on to the Orientation and Career Center for the Blind updates.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, good deal. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Jim Portillo. I'm the director of the training center. Very happy to talk about two kind of new things that are happening at the training center that started this past March, and they've been going for this past term. One is called Conversations About Blindness, which is the big thing. And Conversations About Blindness is kind of a new discussion forum, kind of a class. I almost hate to call it a class because there's no real homework involved, but it is definitely a discussion group, discussion forum. And we already have the Living with Blindness that kind of introduces a lot of our new clients to blindness anyway. Well, this is kind of a continuation of sorts, but on a deeper level. So what I like about it is that we can explore blindness in a new way. And I think the word that we can use is exploratory. In fact, let me get it to where. There we go. Okay, so there are three main goals about Conversations About Blindness, and we're calling it CAB for those who like acronyms. And one of them is to be able to explore their philosophy of blindness. So, what do they think about blindness and how do they feel about blindness now that they've been kind of introduced to and have begun to learn how to deal with their vision loss or just deal with blindness in general. And then they get to also explore and look at and challenge societal misconceptions. So we all know that society has all these weird expectations or weird outlooks on blindness, and sometimes our clients question what they mean and what how to look at them. So we talk about all of that good stuff. And finally, they get to develop what we hope is a positive and empowered outlook of blindness. So Philosophy is good, but I think in order to develop a philosophy, we need a good outlook. How do they feel about their blindness? And how do they feel about going out into the real world, into the working world, as a blind person? And from there, they can kind of develop what they think about how the world views them and how they view themselves. So I think that's important. So I'm leading this discussion group, but we've also had guest speakers, such as other blind staff, and we also had both Angel and Daisha come and talk to our group. And next term, I've already asked Daisha to come and explain the rehabilitation process to our clients because, sometimes they come to our training center and they're not always sure. Oh, okay. My computer's about to restart. I'm not sure why. But anyway, I will try and keep this short. So anyway, we're going to explain the rehabilitation process. We're also going to be reading several different articles next term. So anything from dealing with independence to dealing with language. We're also doing what we call thought provokers, written by a gentleman named Robert Newman. And we're also kind of explaining or talking about people's blindness journeys. So people are loving it. People are kind of leading the discussions in many respects. So I can come up with a topic, and all of a sudden we're just talking about not only that topic but any other topics that are related. So this is going very well, and our clients seem to really enjoy it. In addition to that, we've also come up with a new blindness discussion for Spanish speakers. And at first it was going to be informal, but I've learned this term that the clients who are in it, they really want more of it. So it's going to be an official thing, at least for a few terms. And it's called Pláticas a Ciegas. And it's probably more of a clever wordplay in Spanish than it is in English. But it basically means conversations in the dark or blind chat, very loosely translated. But the main thing is that people get to talk about issues regarding blindness without needing an interpreter, without needing anything. But if they speak Spanish, that's great. If they speak Spanglish, that's fine as well. And we also get to talk about the Hispanic community and some of its unique characteristics and cultural views about blindness. Family is very overprotective sometimes, and a family sometimes doesn't know how to deal with blindness in the Hispanic culture. And because the Hispanic culture is so tight-knit, sometimes we as blind Hispanics don't always know how to deal with our families or our blindness in general. So I think we've grown. We've had anywhere from 4 to 6, maybe 7 actually, participants, and they're really loving the conversations as well. So just wanted to let all of you know about our new discussion groups going on here at the training center. And I'm happy to take any questions.
This is Nadira. So I don't have a question, but I would definitely like to sit in on one of those sessions.
You're welcome to do that. We can certainly talk about that.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you. Thank you. Any questions, commissioners? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. All right. Oh, so now we go on to boards and commissions, annual performance progress report, best practices survey.
All right. Good afternoon again, commissioners. This is Angel. And I just wanted to give a heads up that it is that time of year again where we do have the boards and commissions 15 best practices that you are the folks that are going to be evaluating that for us. As a reminder, as we go through those, we're not going to go through all 15 right now just to save you the time, because you will be be working one-on-one with Max this year. He will be doing by phone, I believe. Max, are you doing phone or Zoom?
However it works for them, we'll get their answers from them.
Okay, great. So whatever your preference may be, Max will find out, and he will be doing surveys. We really did feel over the last few years that it sometimes was a little bit confusing for folks when they were trying to do those just independently as a Survey Monkey tool, because sometimes there's just questions that come up, and people ended up really feeling it was beneficial to get an opportunity to talk to Max anyway. So we're just going to make those one-on-one survey opportunities and do the surveys that way this year. So we really do appreciate your time. This does go to the legislature. That is our audience. So it is your opportunity to really just show that hopefully and generally we are meeting all of those criteria because we're paying attention to those 15 areas to make sure that we're in compliance with the best practices for boards and commissions. So as you have questions, Max will be there to answer along the way. And if there's anything that I know myself or Daisha can do to be of help, we're sure happy to do that as well. But that will be beginning to get scheduled. So we just wanted you to expect that those surveys are going to be coming your way in the form of a verbal interview. So if there are any questions about that, I would sure be happy to answer them now, or you can just look forward to hearing from Max to get those scheduled.
And commissioners, I'll just add, please give us feedback. We want the surveys before were a little taxing, and so this is a new attempt to get at the information. So please give us feedback and let us know if this process is better or worse or the same.
Yes.
We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that, Lisa. All right. Well, we really do hope this is going to be a helpful process for you. So thank you for getting that time scheduled with Max. He does have to, just to say, this does need to be done by every commissioner. So he will be hunting you down, but if you can clear whatever you can for your calendars to make sure that happens, that would be beautiful. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Angel.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So before we adjourn, I just want to remind commissioners of the hybrid meeting in August. Just a quick reminder. I'm sorry if you can't make it, but you'll be able to attend the usual way. And to those who can make it, I look forward to meeting you in person. All right.
Chair Nadira,
Yes.
do you mind if I jump in real quick? Just as on the heels of that, I want to make sure people remember that it will be the day of the SWEP celebration. So that will be another really wonderful reason to come in person, because we will have that celebration. And if you come, don't forget your tissues. It's a beautiful opportunity.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, there being no further business.
2:13 p.m. One notification. Friday, June 6th. Friday, 2:13 p.m.
It is 2:13 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned.